Howdy, guys, and welcome to Cliff Notes, and welcome to night number 14 of the overnight feed recaps for Big Brother season 27. A good Tuesday to y'all. We got some things to talk about. We had the veto ceremony yesterday, and not just a veto ceremony, we had two veto ceremonies. Yeah, an exciting day yesterday. Of course, we didn't get to see the ceremonies themselves. That was hidden from us. We'll see them on the TV episodes in the upcoming week. But we know what the results are, and we know all the talking that took place afterwards. So let's just get right into it. As I mentioned, we had two veto ceremonies yesterday. First one, very standard ceremony. At the first one, Keanu, who had won the veto, well, Keanu didn't win. Casey won the veto power on behalf of Keanu, but Keanu used that veto to pull himself off the block as expected, and Jimmy put up Amy as the renom, also expected. And I'm happy to report that eventually he did tell her that she was going to go up. He didn't wait until it actually happened. She knew. She wanted to know earlier, but at least he told her. So Amy went up as the first renom. A few hours later, we got the feeds back, and it's like, oh, did Kelly win her power? Nothing. It was just standard procedure. But we did have a few hours later. The feeds went down again for a couple hours. Kelly had to complete her veto challenge to gain her power. Apparently, she did it. So Kelly's got to be feeling even that much more comfortable about winning competitions and challenges now that she's won the blockbuster and her own little individual challenge. Apparently, it sounds like it was some kind of a puzzle of some sort. I'm picturing something very similar to Caitlin Herman back in her season that she couldn't do, but apparently Kelly could. Kind of a high pressure environment. But Caitlin was playing for her life. Kelly was just playing for a veto. A veto that she needed, but she did win the power, the veto power. She pulled herself off the block. As a result, Jimmy had to do another renom. This time he put Will up as his second pick. So for Thursday, we've got Amy and Will and Adrian on the block. Keanu and Kelly have both come off. Five different nominations that Jimmy had to make this week. He said, oh, it's the first time ever in history someone's had to pick that many. Now, I'm pretty sure that's not the case, Jimmy, but it's certainly not your best option if you're the HOH. So, yeah, so much for nice and easy and smooth HOHs for Jimmy. Not quite what he expected. So, yeah, we've got two of his biggest targets off the block. We now have, again, Amy, Will, and Adrian up there. Will, I was going to say, is probably at the most risk for going home, but he had some people throwing some support his way that we'll talk about as we go through the feed. So right now, it's kind of up in the air which way this thing may go. It's going to be an interesting week. It's going to be a fun Thursday night. All right, one quick item before we get into the feeds happening after that last veto ceremony. Between the two, we saw feeds come back for just a little bit. We saw a lot of house guests cleaning. Some better than others. There's some people in this house don't look like they've ever actually been taught how to handle a broom or a Swiffer, or I saw a day or two ago someone who didn't really know how to use an ironing board either. So yeah, some people do a little more work than others, but Rachel on her hands and knees cleaning hard, still dressed for to impress, but Rachel cleaning hard. She seemed to be directing some shade at Ashley at one point, talking about Ashley saying, I hate when you get grit in the sink and hairs and all. And I always clean that stuff up. And Rachel said, oh, you clean that up at home? Oh, yeah, yeah. That's funny. You don't do it here. And Ashley seemed a little taken aback that Rachel kind of called her out on that, but called her out. She did. So she mentioned that. And it just seems like, I mean, it's just one little throwaway comment, but it's just another indication that Ashley just may not be vibing with the rest of these house guests in this house right now. All right, let's pick up the feeds after the second renom ceremony took place. So now we know who the three people are on the block for the rest of the week. Who's going to be campaigning or not campaigning? We'll find that out over the next few days. We've got Will and Amy and Rachel talking. They've all agreed that Mickey's got the third power. They have pretty much convinced at this point that she probably has it, which is not good news for Mickey, because remember, her power is HOH takeover. Huge power. Remember Quinn from last season? Huge power. But the difference is it's announced to the house. The HOH then has to interrogate everyone, make a pick on who he or she thinks has this HOH takeover power. If they're correct, the power goes away and Mickey doesn't get it. Well, if Will and Amy and Rachel already suspect this is the case, we know Zach suspects it's the case as well. If word gets around, this power that Mickey has basically loses all effectiveness if it can't actually be put in play because everyone's going to pick Mickey. So you shouldn't have said a word, Mickey. May not matter anyway because Zach had already noticed during the competition itself. But anyway, so they're talking about thinking that Mickey definitely has a third power. So she's got to worry a little bit about that. Of course, I'm not sure that Mickey realizes the word is starting to get around. All right, we've got Will and Amy talking a little bit while they're back there during this conversation about being the two oldest house guests in this house, and they're both put on the block. And what do you think about that? Yeah, I can relate, guys. I absolutely can. But they're complaining about that. They're saying they aren't going to kiss a bunch of 20-something-year-olds' asses to stick around in this house. Well, you know what? You can call it that. You can call it kissing the ring, whatever you want. Sometimes, whether they're 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 50-somethings, or whatever, sometimes you just have to play with the people in power, whether you want to or not. But they're saying, we're not going to do it. We're just not going to kiss around like that. They're laughing because they're saying, why are we up here? Neither one of us are a threat. Neither one of us are going to be winning a lot of competition. So why are they putting us up on the block this week? They're right. This has turned into we'll just call it a less than successful HOH for Jimmy. Now, probably not the two targets that he initially planned to have on the block. So, yeah. But again, it's weird things happen in Big Brother House with these twists. All right, we've got Rachel and Jimmy talking a little bit. They're figuring that Adrian probably will win the blockbuster comp. If he does, so it's Amy versus Will on the block, then Rachel and Jimmy are figuring that Amy could win the votes over Will. They're thinking Lauren and Kat and Ashley and Rachel are votes to save Amy. Hopefully they can still bring in Morgan and Mickey, and then also probably bring in Vince and Keanu also to save Amy. So they think they may have the votes. I'm telling you, it's real uncertain right now. It's going to depend a lot on who's got the better influence going forward. And who are the big players? Morgan, Rachel, Vince, Jimmy. There's a lot of folks that could influence this vote coming up on Thursday. Jimmy is suspicious of Morgan right now, as he should be. Morgan's certainly making some deals that don't involve Jimmy right now. Saying he's cognizant that maybe he isn't as tight with her as perhaps he would like to be. All right, we've got Ava talking to Will and Vince. She's just kind of giving Will a bit of a pep talk. Again, Ava, Will, and Vince, these are three members of the Bond Alliance. So many alliances mentioned over the first week or so, but seems like this Bond Alliance, at least in some form, may be one of the ones that sticks around for a while. And I'm all for it. I kind of like this group. But Ava telling Will and Vince that she worries that Mickey is maybe too close to Jimmy, and she's just worried about those two continuing to work together. Ava is hoping that Zach, who is another member of the Bond Alliance, that Zach could potentially seduce Lauren and get her to their side. Lauren's kind of a little bit of a free agent right now. If they could get Lauren over to their side, she's going to make it that much easier to possibly protect Will this week and certainly to exert some influence on down the road in successive weeks. All right, Jimmy is telling Ava and Will at one point he's just glad he was able to flush a couple of powers during his HOH. He's spent several times talking to people about his HOH. I think he's understanding that as far as big targets, it ain't happening this week. I mean, I guess Adrian could be a big target and go home, but probably not happening this week. So Jimmy is really phrasing his HOH as being successful because he's flushed powers, because he's made following week's HOH heads making an easy path for them, and he's just so considerate of future HOHs in sacrificing his HOH in a big target to make sure that future HOHers have an easier path. So Jimmy, thank you for that. But yeah, he's saying that we flushed a couple of powers. That's a huge success. All right, we've got Will and Amy and Ashley talking. They're talking about that if at all possible, at least Will or Ashley needs to win this blockbuster comp, and then the other can win the vote over Adrian to keep their side from losing a number. So that's kind of where they're looking right now. Kelly is telling Ava that if it came down to it, she'd prefer to have Adrian survive over Will or Amy. Ava, on the other hand, and we know she's supporting Will, but she's not telling Kelly this. She's saying, I've talked to Will, but I haven't talked to Amy, and I haven't talked to Adrian that much. So, or I can't remember. Or I haven't talked to Will. Whatever. She says I really haven't talked to the three on the block enough for me to feel comfortable making a commitment on which way I'm voting. So I'm going to talk to them before I say anything. So Kelly's clear. She wants Adrian to survive as we would expect. Ava's a little bit more non-committal at this point in time. We hear later Ava and a couple others saying, Kelly's maybe okay, but she flip-flops a little bit. I'm not going to give her a whole lot of information. That's probably smart. Kelly and information, gold in his house. Don't give it to anyone when you don't need to. Just because they ask doesn't mean that you have to give them an answer. We got Kelly and Keanu talking a little bit. They're thinking that Adrian is going to stay in any scenario. Hopefully he wins a blockbuster comp, but even if he doesn't, if he's on the block as a vote versus Will or versus Amy, these two are very comfortable that he's going to win the vote, stick around. I'm not so certain that they should be so confident that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a little tougher for Adrian than maybe these two think. They both think that Morgan, perhaps as they're watching people play the game, that maybe Morgan is more of a power player than Rachel is right now. And I'm not going to argue with that opinion. I think they may be onto something. They're saying that Morgan gets all this information because she's talking to everyone. Morgan's getting all the information. She's giving it to Rachel, who then tends to exaggerate this information and kind of blows up the information into arguments and targets and things like that. But they think that a lot of this is originating with Morgan. And they're kind of right. They're thinking that they need to get Morgan out pre-jury because she would have too much influence over a jury, and they don't feel like they would necessarily get Morgan's support or vote. And they're probably right on that as well. All right, we've got Morgan and Mickey talking to each other. They both want they both want Will to stay in the house. That is their preference. The other side's thinking they can get these two on board to protect Amy and save her. They may be thinking a little bit differently. They want Will to stay. Morgan is saying that she's going to need to have a hard conversation with Rachel to maybe let her know that maybe Will could support us as much as Amy could. And I know Amy's important to you, Rachel, but sometimes it doesn't quite work the way you want. So they're saying Morgan's saying, I'll need to talk to Rachel, but I want Will to stay as well. Morgan is saying that next week, if she had her HOH reign, that she would go after Kat and Keanu as the next step. Those would be her targets, but she would put up Riley and Lauren and Kat. Oh, I think I said Kat and Keanu. I think she actually said Kelly and Keanu. Would be her primary targets, but she would put up Riley and Lauren and Kat so that she could backdoor Keanu and Kelly and not give them any more chances to get themselves pulled off the block. There's talk, again, this is Morgan and Mickey, there's talk about forming a new group, new alliance, which would be Mickey and Morgan, Zach and Vince, and possibly Ava also. So another configuration thrown out there. Mickey is going to, in order to get this thing put together, Mickey says she's going to talk to Will, who can then talk to Zach and Vince about forming this group. They don't necessarily want to have everyone together all at once, but feeling like Will can potentially bring in Zach and Vince, the two guys, and make this work. Is Will being handed a lifeline right here? Start of the day, I thought that if it came down to a vote, Will's going home over anyone else. Get a little alliance for him. You get Morgan and Mickey on your side and Zach and Vince, and suddenly things could happen. So maybe it isn't all said and done for Will just yet. All right, they think that Will could be safe this week. They're thinking that everyone would vote to save him except maybe Rachel. Now, I disagree with that. I think it's going to be a lot more split vote unless the House gets wind that it's leaning one way or the other and everyone votes with the House and jumps on board. We'll see. But they're thinking that it could easily be Will safe and Rachel a lone vote to save Amy. I don't see that happening. They're both going to work on pulling in different groups to try to make sure they're protected from all sides. Morgan is going to talk to Kelly and Keanu and Vince because she feels like she's got a little bit more influence with those guys. Mickey, on their hand, is going to talk to Will about this alliance that they discussed that also would include Vince and Zach and Ava. So get Will to get the others on board and get some protection from all directions. All right, Morgan is proposing a little bit later, talking to Zach. Morgan's proposing yet another alliance to Zach. I'm glad they don't have names yet. They were talking about, oh, we'll call this some cute name like Pinky Swear or something. That better than 7-Eleven. But Morgan's proposing another alliance to Zach that would be Zach and Morgan and Mickey and Will and Vince and Ava and Ashley. And she's saying, I know you don't really like Ashley, Zach. She's just there for a number. She's just there for a vote. We don't really plan on keeping her, but short term, if we get her to vote with us, whatever. And then we'll cut her loose later. So again, Morgan, Mickey, Zach, Morgan, Mickey, Will, Vince, Ava, and Ashley. We'll see if anything comes of it. All right, we've got Mickey and Will and Ashley talking. Mickey's telling Ashley, Mickey's trying to help Ashley out a little bit, I think. She's telling Ashley, say, look, maybe don't talk quite as much as you do sometimes. Sometimes you kind of talk when maybe you should and all that. But she also says, and this is a little bit more of the conversation, she says, you need to stop hanging around Amy so much. People are looking at the two of you as a unit, and if they're going after Amy, they're going after you, Ashley. It's just not doing any benefit by hanging around so much. Ashley's saying, yeah, but she's probably going home, so I just feel like I want to hang with her while I can. And Mickey's saying, yeah, but it's hurting your game as well. Too many people are seeing you as a pair. Ashley is countering that Morgan and Mickey are seen as a pair as well, which Mickey doesn't really say. Nah. Well, that is true. There's plenty of people who are already seeing them as a bit of a voting block. So you always have to be careful about people paying attention to who you're hanging out with. So Ashley's coming back with that. Morgan or Mickey not really seeming to necessarily take that as seriously. The difference is Amy is being targeted by a lot of people right now. Morgan and Mickey, not yet. Not so much. All right, Mickey is later telling Ashley about this alliance of Mickey and Ashley and Morgan and Ava and Will, and that Will then bring in Zach and Vinny. But Zach and Vinny, just for now, they aren't. They're like associate members of this other group. They'll cut them loose a little bit later, but just for now, just to help with the numbers. You get an alliance, you get an alliance. We all get an alliance in this house. That always happens this stage of the game. Except during my season where it's just one big alliance that we had to break up. All right, meanwhile, I've got Will talking to Vince about the alliance that Mickey had proposed that we talked about just a second ago. Mickey is proposing that alliance to Ava also, so spreading their feelers out there to see what people think about it. But she is saying that Will came to her with the idea. When she talks to Ava about it, she's not talking about the fact that she and Morgan came up with this idea. Instead, she's saying, hey, Will came to us with this idea, Ava, and it seems like a good group with it. And she says, another thing, we've got Zach. Zach will be a little bit of a shield for this group. He's the comp beast bro that will be the shield for short term. Hopefully we don't lose them, but if we do, they'll come after Zach before they'll come after us. Ava is saying she's okay with that line. She's all on board with it. In fact, sounds good to her. But she is worried about the fact that if they're talking about Will being in this alliance, then that means Will stays, assuming Adrian maybe comes off the block with a blockbuster comp. That means sending Amy out the door. And Ava is worried that about this alliance and how Rachel's going to take it. She says Rachel and Ashley both are going to be upset if Will stays over Amy if it comes down to it. And so we have to be aware that could create some issues from Rachel's side if this was to happen. They mention that both Vince and Kelly, kind of on the other side, both scared them a little bit. They're not really sure what they're going to do day to day. Yeah, I kind of get that, especially with Kelly. She's a little bit of we'll just call it free spirit. Lauren is talking to Adrian, telling Adrian that she wants him to stay. So we kind of see where Lauren may be looking this week. Now, if Adrian pulls himself off the block with the blockbuster comp, which way would Lauren go as an Amy versus Will? Yeah, I don't know. People fighting over her soul at this point if that was to happen. All right, we've got Vince telling Lauren that Keanu has called Rachel and Jimmy and Morgan the heads of the snake at various points in time. So yeah, just throwing that out there, Vince is. He's saying that Kat's name has been mentioned as a target by several people. Lauren says, "What about me?" And he said, "Nah, you should be all right, Lauren." He says, "In fact, people are wanting you to be in alliances. Kat, not so much, but you should be all right." We've seen Lauren and Kat hanging around a lot, and it seems like Vince is maybe trying to split them up just a little bit by saying that, or at least letting Lauren know that just because Kat may be under the gun doesn't necessarily mean that she needs to be. Again, I think a lot of people are looking to Lauren as a swing vote and someone they need to get on their side. Lauren is saying that she's been distancing herself from Zach recently just because Rachel keeps pushing this showmance angle. She doesn't want it. Anytime she hangs out with Zach, Rachel's saying something about it. As a result, she's not necessarily hanging out with Zach as much as she would otherwise. But Lauren is also saying that she talks zero game with Rachel. She just doesn't talk game with her at all. Vince says, I talk a little bit with her, but not really much at all. And so at the end, Lauren says, well, if I'm not going to talk game with her, if Rachel doesn't want me with her anyway, then maybe I should talk to Zach a little bit more often. We'll see how that goes. All right, we got Kat talking to Riley, telling Riley that she wants Morgan on the block next. Morgan's not a huge fan, not a fan at all of Kat, and Kat doesn't seem to be a fan of Morgan's either. Telling Riley that she wants Morgan on the block next. Well, we know that Riley's deep in love, will do whatever Kat needs to happen. So we'll see if Riley starts pushing against Morgan going forward now that he's gotten his marching orders. She also has told Riley that Morgan and Mickey were pushing to get him on the block next week or this week. So she says, yeah, they both were talking to Jimmy about you being a better option than Will or Amy. So I want Morgan on the block, but don't do it because you love me so much, Riley. Do it because they were mentioning your name, and it's only right for you to do so. So she's given a few different incentives to maybe go after Morgan next week. All right, we've got Mickey telling Rachel that Adrian is stronger than the other two, and therefore needs to be sent home. Again, this I think is a way of Mickey maybe trying to get her and Rachel on the same side by sending out Adrian and not necessarily having to deal with the whole, do we keep Amy over Will, and where they know there's going to be some friction and some conflict. As long as Adrian's still on the block and everyone's on board to get him out, then they don't have to deal with Rachel getting upset with them this week. So she's pushing that a little bit, saying, we just have to send Adrian home. All right, we've got Rachel and Morgan talking a little bit. Rachel is saying, Morgan was doing a lot of work last night. Morgan is a game girl, and she's definitely playing the game. Rachel and Morgan are talking. Rachel is saying that Keanu is just obsessed with her. He just keeps wanting to push her buttons. She didn't do anything to him, and yet he just keeps pushing her buttons over and over again. Morgan is talking about saying, yeah. All right, let's talk about what we're going to do going forward. Morgan is saying that she wants to backdoor Keanu, but that she wants to put up Riley and Lauren and Kat as the initial target. Again, she talked to Mickey a little bit about this too, telling Rachel as well, saying, hey, I'm all on board. Let's get out Keanu. You and I, we're on the same path here, but I'm going to start off with Riley, Lauren, and Kat, and then we'll backdoor Keanu. Which I think is valid. With the veto and the blockbuster, it's a lot of ways to pull yourself off the block. If you can cut that in half by a backdoor, then gives you a little better chance to get Keanu out the door. So Morgan definitely making sure that Rachel knows that maybe they are still on the same page here. All right, we've got Ashley and Mickey talking a little bit. Ashley mentions that Amy has said that she'll lose her job after 30 days. And Ava now wants to send Amy home so that doesn't happen. Don't give that kind of information that ever leads people to say, oh, they'd be better off going home. I actually was in the same position of after a certain amount of time. In fact, the day I won Battle back in HOH was the day that I knew if I didn't leave the house that night, I'd lose my job. You know what? I'm glad I stayed in the house as long as I did, and I sure didn't tell anyone that. No reason that you should ever give anyone some kind of incentive to justify and feel better about sending you out of the house. But Amy has mentioned it. Now Ava is saying, well, I don't want her to lose her job. Let's just send her home right now. But Ashley is saying, well, we need Ava's vote. If we're going to save Amy, we need Amy's vote. So we can't send her home right now. Mickey is arguing that Adrian might be just as good to keep as Amy, saying, Adrian is a strong competitor. Adrian will support us as well. Let's consider Adrian instead of Amy. But Ashley's shutting that down. Ashley and Rachel and Amy are tight. Ashley's disagreeing. Ashley's saying, now, look, Adrian and Kelly are a voting block. They're too close to each other. We don't want to work with Kelly, which means we don't want to work with Adrian. We can't depend on him. We've got to save Amy over Adrian. We can't lose her right now. All right, we've got Ashley and Rachel and Morgan talking. Ashley is saying that they have 6 votes. I think this is to save Amy. Rachel is thinking they could probably get Riley on their side. But Morgan is saying, nah, Riley's already voted against Amy once. We can't get him to support Amy. Well, actually, Riley did not vote to save Amy. He voted to send out Zach. I mean, he voted to save Amy by sending out Zach. So he voted in support of Amy. So Morgan is incorrect on this, but it may still be tough to get a Riley vote at this point in time. Ashley is saying that Kat doesn't like Amy. Ashley is worried that Amy goes home over Will if it comes down to a vote. Well, I would have disagreed at the start of the evening. By now, Ashley may be onto something. Will's got more support than I expected. Morgan is saying that Amy is getting hurt. Her game is hurting because she won't talk game with anyone. Remember at the very beginning of our conversation, Will and Amy saying they aren't going to be kissing up to any 20-somethings. You got to play the game. And people are recognizing that Amy's spending a little too much time complaining and not nearly enough time actually trying to work deals or make promises or do something that benefits her game. So Morgan is pointing that out, that Amy's just not really in the groove right now as far as gameplay. Morgan is telling Ashley that she doesn't know just yet what she's going to do. And that, again, as we heard earlier, Amy might only receive Rachel's vote. So she's trying, I think, prepare Ashley for things not going quite the way Ashley is expecting it to be. But they're both agreeing that keeping Adrian doesn't benefit either one of them. So again, amongst the ladies, if they can get Adrian out, then they don't have to deal with the Amy versus Will and different sides and all of that. So for the stability of that side, having Adrian not winning Blockbuster is definitely the best case scenario. For the chaos that we as viewers like to see, I'm kind of thinking Adrian coming off the block would be a fun Thursday night. All right, we've got Zach and Vince and Lauren and Jimmy talking a little bit. Zach's complaining about Ashley not wanting to clean earlier. Remember we had Jimmy complaining about people not washing dishes and all of that, and then suddenly they're all cleaning the floors, and people are complaining about other people not clean, Ashley not clean on. I don't know what the impetus was. I don't know if Jimmy mentioned it enough people that people got a little paranoid that maybe he was referring to them, and so they're all trying to do double duty, or maybe production came on and said, "You guys are slobs. You better start doing more work." I don't know what it is, but they're certainly being a little cleaner yesterday. But yeah, Zach's complaining that Ashley's not really wanting to clean earlier, saying that she avoids him. She just won't talk to him. He says if she wins HOH, or if I win HOH, I'm putting her on slop. Jimmy's laughing, saying, "Well, if you do that, that's great, but do not put me on slop with her. That would kill me." So they're having some laughs at Ashley's expense at this point. Jimmy is talking about Amy as well. He's saying she complains all the time, but he put her on slop not as a punishment. He put her on slop as a gift, so that she could be with Rachel, because he knows how tight her connection was with Rachel. So yeah, so Jimmy's just, again, just acting out of the goodness of his heart in these decisions he makes. All right, we've got Vince and Morgan and Zach and Jimmy in the upstairs lounge. I think it seemed like they wanted to meet in the HOH room. But Morgan mentions that she doesn't think Kat will ever leave that room. Kat's been spending a lot of time up in the HOH room, and down in the hammock, and anywhere else that Jimmy is. Kat's been tending to hang out as well. Hey, Kat, Jimmy's power is gone at this point in time. But yeah, she's been hanging around a lot, and so they're thinking she may not leave the HOH room, so they may have a little bit more difficult time meeting than they wanted. Morgan is saying that the Heavy Hitters Alliance, which is Morgan and Jimmy and Vince and Riley and Zach and Rachel, so several members of this group were talking about meeting, and we'd heard Jimmy the night before say, "Hey, let's meet tomorrow night." She's saying, "Look, it's already getting late, and all that. Well, we should probably meet maybe tomorrow afternoon. Let's do it in the afternoon when everyone's outside. Maybe we got more room to have some conversations. Right now, with 16 people, it just ain't happening. It's tough to find any private space in that house at the start of the season." Morgan is saying that she's going to keep Will no matter what. Just everyone else needs to realize she's made her commitment. She is protecting Will, whether he's up on the block versus Adrian or Amy. And so then no ifs and ands or buts about it. Morgan's made her decision, hoping everyone else is on board with it as well. Ashley at one point's in her bunk bed. I take that back. Actually, Ashley's in the bunk bed room, the train room. I still don't know what to call it, but Ashley's in that room. She's making her bed. She's sorting her clothes. She's folding clothes. She's putting clothes up. Just doing a lot of little housework type things, which is fine. And I'm sure no one minds that, except that it's at night. As long as she's in there working, the house lights are going to stay on in that room. And unfortunately, Kat and Ava and Mickey are all in there trying to sleep, and the lights are still on. It doesn't last forever. It's not like she's in there for hours and hours, but 5, 10, 15 minutes, something like that. Uh, Little things like that can really get on people, put other people on edge with you. So she's doing that. Eventually she gets done. She's in bed as well. So the lights finally turn off in the bunk bedroom. Final little comments here. We've got in various little configurations, we've got Morgan talking to Ashley and Vince and Keanu and Zach in the bathroom while they're getting ready to go to bed, in the kitchen while they're putting up dishes and kind of cleaning up before they're going to bed. Morgan's talking to a lot of people about people possibly lying about their profession. And the main one that she thinks is lying about her profession is Kat. Morgan is convinced that Kat could be a law student. She's pushing that out to a lot of people, saying Kat's talked about court cases and all that. She said she's too young to be a lawyer. I don't think that's the case. I think she's still in school. But she says she just knows too much. I don't know anything about these court cases. Kat knows about all of them. I think she's probably a law student. So just y'all be aware of that. Certainly putting a little bit more of a target on Kat at this point in time. And Morgan, again, she's pushing the conversation with everyone else, and everyone's saying, "Oh, okay, yeah, that could be the case." So yeah, we know there's an attorney in the house, but it's not Kat. But no one else knows that, as far as I know. All right, and finally, with that conversation, eventually everyone calls it a night. Everyone in bed by 9 o'clock, 4 o'clock or so, Big Brother time. So not a horribly late night. But there you have it, guys. So the main thing is that I feel like right now you've got a battle for two sides. You've got Rachel and that side fighting for Amy, but they've lost a lot of folks who suddenly now are on board with Will, and then you've got this other side of the house that is really kind of supporting Adrian. So in some ways, you almost have three different groups or three different people supporting different people on the block. It's going to make for an interesting week. I'm very excited about it. All right, guys, y'all have a fantastic Tuesday. I don't know what's going to happen tonight. We'll get some campaigning and everything. We'll see how people solidify some positions. I feel like it may be even more, not the three people on the block who are going to be doing the campaigning, but a lot of their supporters who are actually doing the main work behind the scenes and trying to bring in other people and talk alliances and all that. So it's going to be a good evening. I'll be back tomorrow morning to give you a recap of what happened overnight. Until then, y'all have a fantastic Tuesday. SKD 143. Cheers, my friends.